I know people who seem to have ice water in their veins when it comes to shooting whitetails, but that was never me. I always struggled with rushing the shot. You know, if I saw a deer coming in, even if it was a doe, I'd get so excited. I keep thinking, you know, the quicker I can get this shot off, the better. You know, at any second, this thing is going to spook, something's going to go wrong, this whole thing is going to unwind. It just seemed like that's the nature of bow hunting. There's always something that can go wrong. Well, your mind starts playing tricks on you, and you think that even when everything is going smooth, it's just a second away from blowing up. So I always was rushing. You know, I'd get to full draw, and I would be just itching to get that shot off. And that resulted in some poor hits over the years. And, you know, part of it is just the fact that, you know, you don't rehearse the shot mentally. You know, you don't have a lot of experience. I mean, let's say how many deer can you kill in a year? You know, unless you're shooting a lot of does, you know, not very many. You know, and maybe it might even be years between bucks that you shoot. So you don't have a lot of live practice. So you got to rehearse that a lot in your mind. But there's a physical step that I've learned. It's the best tip that I ever got on shooting a bow at live game. And I want to pass that along in today's video. So this tip, and I've had some really, really good coaches over the years. I mean, I've been fortunate to know some really great archers, people like Randy Ulmer, John Dudley, and there have been a number of others over the years, you know, that were either, you know, great hunters, great 3D shooters, just great archers. So I learned what you're supposed to do with the bow at full draw. You know, the muscles that you're supposed to relax, how you're supposed to aim, how you're supposed to breathe, all of those things. But it didn't really help that much when there was a deer standing 20 yards away and I was on adrenaline overload. The only tip that ever really helped there was one that I got from Pete Shepley. He was the originator of PSC archery, and I was sitting at one of the ATA shows talking with Pete one time, and he was telling me about some fellow that he knew and how deadly he was and so forth, and we got off on the topic of shooting a bow, and I said, yeah, I feel like, you know, when I'm shooting at targets, you know, I can squeeze the shot, I can use a back tension release, I can get a surprise release, you know, go easy on the trigger, all that stuff. I said, but when I'm hunting game, I feel like timing is more important than precision accuracy, you know, especially whitetails. I feel like, you know, getting that perfect shot in that shooting lane is more critical than just pinpoint archery skill, accuracy. And Pete said, no, that's not true. He said, you have to get a surprise release even when you're shooting at game. He said, because if you start creating bad habits there, you know, how can you fix them? Because you're not practicing that way on the range. You need to hunt the same way that you practice. So I got to thinking about it, and I thought, well, I'll give this a try. I'm going to learn how to produce a surprise release every single time I shoot at a whitetail. And that was really tough for me, super tough, because what happens is you get to full draw, you get near the spot you want to shoot, you know, your pin gets near there and you want to punch the trigger. Well, that extra second that it takes for you to get your finger on the trigger and start squeezing is just enough to get that pin in the exact spot. It takes a lot of discipline, because that tendency to want to rush, that jumps in there, but you got to force yourself to wait, hold that pin in that spot while your finger is getting in position to squeeze. You know, I've lost that fear that comes when you get to full draw and you think, oh gosh, you know, I'm going to screw this up. That went away, and it was replaced with this whole like routine of, okay, get the pin on the spot, get your finger on the trigger, squeeze the trigger. You know, that kind of replaced that sense of, okay, now I'm at full draw, I need to get the arrow, you know, in the air. So, you know, as simple as it sounds, that was my number one tip. I mean, that's the best tip I can offer to people who are struggling with shots at game. And producing a surprise release has other benefits too. It eliminates target panic. Some people have that tendency when they get their pin on the spot when they're shooting at a target to get kind of flinchy, like, okay, now. They keep making a command with their head to their finger of when to pull the trigger. Well, that results in target panic. And at the end of the day, you really struggle getting your pin to stay on the spot, or even, you know, get close to the spot that you want to shoot, because mentally you're trying to time it. But if you get away from that and just let the pin float on the spot that you're trying to hit, you know, keep it as small as you can, but don't worry about, you know, holding it still while you're squeezing with the other hand, the arrow has a really surprising tendency to find the middle of that spot. It's pretty it's a pretty cool thing. And I can't really explain how it works. We must have some kind of natural centering tendency, you know, inside of our brains, and somehow that arrow seems to find the middle of it. But for some people it's super hard because they're so used to punching the trigger that they can't put their finger on it and squeeze it. So in that case, you should really use a back tension release to train your mind and your central nervous system to accept that surprise release. And a back tension release is basically one that doesn't have a trigger. You know, you get to full draw, you pull, your hand rotates, and then boom, the shot goes. You don't have any ability to time it. All you do, your whole focus is just keep that pin floating around that spot while you're pulling through at the back. Little by little, that creeps into your, like I said, into your nervous system, and then that's the way that you naturally shoot all the time. And then when you go back to a finger trigger release right before the hunting season, you can duplicate that same feeling. You just hit full draw, pull back against the back of the valley, and then just while your pin is floating around, you're squeezing with your index finger until, you know, boom, it goes. So that would be my number one advice. And you may think that I can't do that, but you can do it. You know, if I can do it, you can do it, because I struggled with, you know, buck fever or punching the trigger or whatever you want to call it as bad as anybody you probably know. And this tip really fixed it up for me. So I'm going to start getting out and putting cameras out. I talked about it on the last episode about when to start. We're closing in on that time now. So I'm going to start getting my cameras out. I'll throw up a few videos about the types of bucks that I'm finding, maybe some of the strategies that are going to go in with hunting those deer. But we'll start shifting gears more and more now toward the hunting season. And that should be fun. I mean, we're still sitting here in August and it doesn't feel like whitetail season yet, but it's just right around the corner. It's time to get started, and then hopefully you've got enough time here where you can add this shooting tip to your practice regimen and build that into your shooting style when you're hunting this fall. Well, I appreciate you joining me this week. I'll see you right back here again next week for the next episode of Bowhunting Whitetails, and remember to always dream big.